everybody. Welcome to the Bluebird Box Knits. This is where I talk all about my knitting and yeah, it's just my knitting channel and my knitting life that I share with you guys. So I'm really glad you're here. If you've been here before, you might notice that this is a different location than I normally record at. The wind was really strong in my room where I usually record, and it was just howling, so I thought that would be distracting. This might be distracting because I usually have my phone flipped, so I use the back camera and then I can see it through my mirror what's happening, but then I tend to look at my camera correctly, whereas this one I look at myself, so just a note about that. Otherwise, I have a lot to talk about in a short amount of time, so let's just get to it. First off, if you're new, you might not know that I am a Canadian. I live in Alberta, Canada, and if you're interested in some of the natural history and the traditional caretakers of the land, you can find that in my About section of my channel, where I acknowledge that I am not I'm only a small part of what has happened here in the past and who has lived here and who has loved and been cared for by the land and cared for the land. I also talked about where I am. I'm a little bit flustered today. I have a really short amount of time. Today is a day that I usually dedicate towards my knitting job, which is as a knitwear designer, and I include my podcasting in that work time, but today has kind of gone sidetracked as so many of my days go, so I started late and I'm trying to squeeze this in. So yeah, that's, as I said, short amount of time, so let's just get started. So what am I wearing? Well, this is my only finished object for the week. This is the Garti Cardi, which is currently in testing. It is a pattern I developed, and it should be released in the spring, late March, early April. And I finished it. I got the collar pieces all attached and the hem attached and the cuffs, and I also added a pocket option. Yeah, because I don't think you can live without pockets. So that's that. Mine took, I don't remember, a lot of yarn. And I think the star of the show is actually this. So I used scraps and leftovers for all of the sweater body and the sleeves, but I used 2 skeins of Sassy Strings Yarn Studio in the color Blackberry for the brioche collar and cuffs, and it's just this beautiful between a purple and a navy, and it's the perfect neutral. I think it could go with, ooh, don't look at my seaming job there. It could go with any scrappy project, and it just goes with every color in here, and it sort of calms it down and chills it out a bit so it's not so wild. It's a very boxy housecoat like garment with narrow sleeves, because that's what I prefer, and it's a drop shoulder but with a different way of constructing it, so you don't have 2 pieces, you don't have a front and a back that you seam together. You actually increase these as one, so from here to here it is worked as one piece, all of these 3 pieces, and then you split for the front and back so that you can have an armhole, and then you join it back up again and work it all as one piece to the hem. Then you pick up the armhole stitches and work that in the round to the cuff. Yeah, and then the collar pieces are worked as two separate pieces that are seamed. So there is seaming, but if you choose the brioche option, because there's a 1x1 ribbing option and a brioche option, if you pick the brioche option, then you will actually do no purling throughout the project. So you can use scrap yarn and no purl stitches. And yeah, it eats up a lot of yarn stash. I think that's all I can say about that for now. I'm sure I'll talk more about it when it gets closer to publishing. That has a little brioche edge on the pocket also. So the pocket is done as an afterthought. I just added those instructions so nobody has tested it. I don't think anybody's even done the body enough to try that out, but it's just a stockinette liner. And it seems quite big enough for phones and keys and everything. Yeah. I'm really happy with it. And I give all kinds of guidelines in the future pattern, not yet released, about how to change colors and do it so that you don't have to weave in ends. You just trim your ends when you're done. And yeah. Okay. So my works in progress are the circular yoke sweater that I'm doing in Brooklyn tweed yarn that was gifted to me by the company in order to create this pattern. This might look like I haven't done very much in 2 weeks, but actually this is the third version of the sweater. It just uses 2 colors. There's my floats. And obviously not finished the yoke yet. This is another yoke that I did. So I was just about at the same spot when I realized that these increases were not in the right place, so I needed to change them. And this is eventually what the yoke will look like. Yeah, not much to say about that. It's in the colors Cast Iron and Pure, which are natural shades, I'm pretty sure. Trying to show you all the different colors in there, but that's not really working. My mom is still working on the Seed Star hat, which is a big project. She's making amazing progress on it. And then I am just working on this Musselburgh hat for myself. So this is my Take Everywhere project. I take it to appointments, and when we're going somewhere and my husband is driving, which has not really happened very often in the last 2 weeks. I've been to lots of places, but I've been driving. And oh yeah, I wanted to tell you guys that I was telling you that I got these spin cables as a Christmas present. They're Chowgu spin cables that work on red lace needles. And they move the join here spins, so the metal part moves independently of the cable. I don't love them. This join catches, which really is the best thing about chagu needles, is that they don't catch. This is a really smooth join. And I also find that even though I twist these on with my silicone or my rubber little patch and my T-pins, that it actually loosens this and they come off. And then you really have a gap there that catches your yarn. So just as a buyer beware, I don't love these. The red ones are, the standard red chagu cables are much better. For plans and dreams, I have some new developments. I have started a casual position. So now I have a full-time job as a mom and a homemaker of our family of 6. And I have a part-time job as a knitwear designer. And I do that 2 days a week. And also a country dweller and livestock owner, which takes time. That's sort of like a part-time job. And now I'm picking up some shifts at the yoga studio that I attend. I'm not teaching. People seem to like to ask me if I'm teaching, and I'm not qualified to teach yoga, but I'm just working the front desk. They're really busy, and which is fantastic. I'm so glad that they survived the pandemic and are now busy again. So they're pretty desperate for help. So I was asked if I wanted to pick up some evening shift there. So I'm doing that once a week. So yeah, my time is becoming more and more limited. I'm away most nights of the week, so it's a little bit crazy, and it seems like my at-home knitting time is shrinking and shrinking, which is a bit of a struggle, because the 2 days that I spend a week on my knitting design, I only do computer work. I only do pattern math and calculations and writing, and I manage test calls and test knits and things like that. And I don't get paid to knit. So I used to have quite a good amount of time that I could knit, and typically when we drove somewhere, my husband would drive and I would have extra time. But now it seems like a lot of our time is divided, and I'm driving a lot. I'm spending a lot of time driving, and yeah, so I always took my knitting everywhere, but it's just a struggle to find the time to knit the samples. So, and a lot of the knitting and designing go hand in hand. So I'll spend a day working on something and figuring it out, and then I'll try it out in knitting during the week, during my non-office hours. So I work on Monday, and then I'd have Tuesday and Wednesday to knit. And then Thursday I work in the office again, and I could hammer out those changes and then go back to knitting Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Amidst, is that a word? In among all the other things that we were doing as a family. But now, now I just have like Monday and Thursday to knit and figure out and all those things. So thankfully I have some patterns that are near the testing stage, so those can go ahead, but it's just things are slowing down. I would like to work on the momentum that my business has built in the past 6 months, but it seems like the state my life is in at the moment, I really can't do that. So I'll just have to plod along slowly and hope that you are sticking around for my turtle-like pace of producing things and patterns. So anyway, all that rant to say, people often ask me how I do everything that I do, and number one, I get up early. I get up at 5:30 every day. And I work hard. I'm a hard worker. I enjoy accomplishing things. But I know a lot of people are really hard workers, and a lot of people get up early, and a lot of people stay up late to finish things. So I don't think that makes me any different than anybody else. I am very privileged in that I am very supported. So my husband is very supportive. He's at a place where he has weekends off, and he can give me time away from kids to accomplish things. And my parents live next door, and they are very kind and gracious and helping us out when things go awry. So I am very supported, and I'm very blessed to be doing what I'm doing and doing all the fun things. Like I get to work at one of my happy places, my yoga studio, and I get to create things, and people give me money so that I can create things. So I feel very blessed. So it just feels it feels like a lot right now, but at the same time, I know life goes in waves. So we have our busy stages, and then it will drop off, and I'll be missing being able to accomplish all these things. So anyway, that was a long rant. For other plans and dreams, I showed you guys this cardigan vest last time that I had finished, that I didn't really like how it turned out. My friend said that she likes this vest, and I said, hey, I'll send it to you, because I won't wear this one. It's too big. It just doesn't work with my wardrobe. And it's more her style, this oversized vest. But I would like to make one for myself. So I did write up some numbers in my size, and I am pretty sure I have enough yarn to finish another one. So this is Cascade Eco DK, and it's undyed. It says color 4, doe skin. And yeah, it's a DK. It's a little bit thicker DK. I didn't put the gauge in here. I think it's at a 20 stitch gauge. I should probably write that down to be able to check my gauge while I'm knitting it. Yeah, so that will be a good one to take as a travel knit too, because once you're done the shoulders, and especially once you're done the armhole and the V-neck increases on the side, then it's just stockinette. It's not very complicated, just knits and purls. And it only uses one needle size for everything, so you don't even have to bring your needle to the case. So that's a pattern I would like to develop. I think there's enough interest in that one, and it should be a really fast test knit. Otherwise, okay, for acquisitions, I told you last podcast that I was looking for mohair recommendations, and thank you so much to everyone who suggested all kinds of alternatives. A lot of people suggested that I try Surrey alpaca. Actually, I'm allergic to alpaca. I have very sensitive skin, so I find alpaca very itchy to touch and wear. But also when I knit with Surrey alpaca, my throat itches, like the back of my throat. So I don't knit with Surrey alpaca, and I wouldn't wear it because it'd be so itchy. So that makes things complicated with a mohair substitution. I have really sensitive skin. I've just realized that I'm extremely sensitive to fragrances. So perfume, I always knew that I reacted to wearing it, or if I was near where it was sprayed, I would get a rash. But I'm realizing that I need to be more vigilant than that and not use anything that has perfume in it. Lotions, shampoos, soap, all that stuff. So I'm getting some special university allergy test, because a regular allergy test isn't able to test for perfumes. Anyway, all that to say, alpaca's not an option. Mohair is, I hope, an option if I go with one of the higher end brands. A lot of people said Ysolda was a really good option, that it was really, really soft, and Shibui Cloud is another one. Problem is that I don't have those available to me in brick and mortar stores. So the closest yarn store to me is 45 minutes away, and I go to that town to go to Costco, to do appointments. Our orthodontist is there. We often have reason to go to that town, so I can squeeze in a visit to the yarn store. However, all the other ones are very far away, and there's nothing else that I need in those areas. So it would be a specific trip to the yarn store, which I just don't have time at this time of my life. So yeah, I'm still on the search. I don't like ordering online because I have made mistakes before and ordered colors that didn't come as I expected them to come. So like they were different than I saw on my computer. So that can be really disappointing when you're spending money on a very high-end mohair, and you don't want to pay for shipping again to get a different one, and then you don't even know if that one is what you want. So I'm a little bit hesitant to do that just because I think it would be a vicious cycle of me being unhappy with what I wanted, and anyway, and then not knowing what to do about it. But I will look into some Ysolda mohair because I think from what you all said, that sounds like a really good potential option. And yeah, Surrey is not an option. But I was at the closest yarn store, which is Statement Junkie, and they have Knitting for Olive, which was one that a few people mentioned might work out okay. I think it's okay. There's a little bit of prickle there, but maybe if it's an open cardigan and it's not like a turtleneck, maybe I could manage it. I got these two colors to swatch with. So this one is called Bark. It's their soft silk mohair, and this one is called Copper. So I'll be pairing it with this plate of unspun from Crux Fibres. That looks quite different, but I think if you pick a darker mohair, it blends better than a light. And I'll be only holding one strand of each. Ooh, that smells like a sheep. It smells like I gave my sheep a hug. Or it smells like my dog, who smells like the sheep. And this one I think is really good. I think this one will work really well. Of course, I didn't have my plate with me when I was there at the store, so I was kind of guessing what color I wanted. But so that one's called Bark. And I think that would, so I'll do a couple swatches and see which one works out, which one I prefer. But I won't cast that on until I have the cardigan vest done, or at least pretty far ahead, so that I can make sure that I'm doing it right, because it will be the same kind of construction as that one. It's so cute. It looks like a little bird nest with two little yarn eggs in it. Yeah, and then shop news is that I listed the Malatank test knit both on my newsletter and on my Instagram, so those will be selected on Monday. The last few testers will be selected on Monday, and the pattern will go out that day, barring any incidents that prevent me from working. yeah, I think that's the only shop news. I really don't have anything else to report. For farm news and spin me a yarn, I don't really know what to share, but we did have an incident with the sheep and an eye injury. So Judo, one of our wethers, is now separated from the other sheep, and his days are limited. I don't want to be too vague and ambiguous about it, but I don't know how much to share on this channel because it's not like a farming channel. It's a knitting channel, and I know you all enjoy the sheep and my sheep stories, but I don't want it to be like gory and depressing. But part of living here and having livestock is that you need to make hard decisions, and you need to make decisions that are best for the entire flock, for the guardian dog, for your family. And so sometimes that means that a sheep that you didn't plan on ever becoming meat becomes meat and goes into your freezer. So that's what's happening with Judo, probably also with Prince, our black wether. They're just really aggressive, and I don't know that wethers are supposed to be like that, or whether they were not castrated properly or what, but they are very aggressive with each other and also with our dog. And so that's just not good for anybody. It's not teaching the dog how to behave around the sheep, and it's causing potential injury to him and also the sheep, because then he defends himself and fights, which is what happened. The Judo was attacking the dog, who retaliated and caused an eye injury, which then became infected and required antibiotics and required him to be immediately removed and put in a new pen, which I had to figure out some time to put up. So it always seems like there's some new emergency on the horizon. So anyway, all that to say, no more boys. Any boy sheep are going into the freezer. And I don't even like lamb very much, but if we don't eat it as a family, then it will become dog food, which is a little ironic in itself, that the dog needs to not attack the sheep, but then he eats them for supper. But anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's the new adventure, is figuring out what to do with these wethers who are aggressive and causing trouble. And the ewes and the dog do just fine. And actually, now that Judo's out of that pen, Prince is much less aggressive, but he still has these tendencies that show up every once in a while, and it only takes a few seconds for something to happen. So yeah. I think that's all. I hope that you are in a happy stage of the waves of life, and that you are not feeling too overwhelmed, and you're able to find the joy in it, and you're able to find some crafting time. And I really wanted to podcast so that I could keep on a routine of every 2 weeks, and then I don't find it so overwhelming, and I can keep on top of like the details of projects instead of being just rushing through them. So I will see you in 2 weeks, and take care. Bye.
Oh, what?